right, everybody, this is, I think, episode 4 of Saving Diane. And what we're going to do now is kind of the reverse of what we did in the other video, and that's to get some new oil in this thing and kind of reverse the process of how we got it out. So the first thing I've got to do was the last thing I did in the other video, and that's get the drain plug back in. I don't think I'm going to need a plastic bag for this, because the oil's not going to come pouring out. It's already out. And let me show you why I'm changing it. That's the oil. It is, well, maybe you can't see it too good, but it's very black. So that's out of there. And I've cleaned off the edge of that plug to get the grunge off of that too. I'm gonna reach up under here and see if I can find that void of where this goes. It's usually on this right rear corner. I can usually hit it pretty good. Quick look. Yep, right up in there. Okay, I don't know if you could hear that or not, but and it's the same thing. I'm just gonna put this in there and get it started. I've got my little gloves on with the rubber fingertips, which helps. If I thought it was too messy, I'd get another plastic bag out, but I've got that started. And so now we take the blocks out. And I'm gonna get this one back here first and get it out. Now this one, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and take this oil over here and put it in the big reservoir. I'll be right back, hang on. Okay, so that's draining out. Like we said before, I always like to tilt my mowers back. I'm not going to tilt this on its side to install the drain plug, to finish installing it. I tilt it back. This is the way I do my work 90% of the time, unless it's a modern mower and you can't get the oil out through a drain plug. Then you have to tip it on the side. But I like the way they did these old ones. And of course, you want to look under here and see if there's things that obviously needs to be cleaned out. But I see a metal wire here. See that? This metal, that needs to come out of there. That was jammed up between the deck and that plastic piece that helps hold the bag attachment on. So let me make sure you can see what's going on here. Yep. So we got our drain plug in. I've turned it in with my fingers, just a few turns. So let me do that a few more times. I gotta get that in there good. And I'm gonna get my breaker bar back out again. Now, I don't need a lot of tension to put this back in. I needed a whole bunch of levers to get it out. But since it's already here and handy, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. Let me get it seated first. There we go. So that's in there. No, I tell you what, I don't really need a bunch of leverage there, so why don't we be smart and go ahead and just use a regular ratchet, and we'll get this thing in a little faster. Get it seated, there we go. you don't need a breaker board to just seat the drain plug. So that's fine. That's all you need. You know, it's that soft metal going into aluminum. You don't need to bear down on that. But it's getting them off is the tricky part. Let me get this hat out of the way. All right, so we've got that back in there. We got to install the blade, but I'm always worried about forgetting to put oil in it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put the oil in right now. And these mowers, most Briggs and Stratton engines take about 16 to 20 ounces. Read your manuals, but what I do is I'll probably start with 16 because the last thing I want to do is overfill these. So I keep a little container I pre-fill with 16 ounces of oil. That way I know I'm not going to overfill it. And I don't have to be careful and worry about it and measuring it every 5 seconds. So let me put this in there. Go around this way to do that. If you work on a lot of mowers, I recommend you have a little quart of oil with a pre-measured amount of about 16 ounces and taking the dipstick out right now. Clean that off. I mean, that was some seriously black oil in there. Sometimes that black oil is a sign of a burnt head gasket, a blown head gasket. But I don't think that's what is the deal with this one. He ran it so long without an air filter because that carburetor was absolutely filthy with dirt. And I think that's where the blackness is from, rather than a blown head gasket. Right. So I'm just going to dump all this in there because I know it's not going to overfill. I got the drain plug in. You don't have to use fancy oil on these Briggs and Stratton mowers, especially the old ones. All you want is just some standard 30 weight oil. You buy it at Walmart. You know, you don't need 5W30, 10W30, you don't need any of that. I mean, you can put it in there, 10W30, you can put it in there if you want, but it's, they really do well with just 30 weight oil. So that's in there, and let's check the level now. All right, it's seated, so will be accurate. And we are at just below the safe mark. I don't know if you can see that or not. You get that old drip off. You never want to be above that top hash mark if possible. And Briggs goes to trouble to say, do not overfill. So do not. And if anything, it might take another ounce or two, but it's right up there on the line, so I think that'll be good. I may add a tablespoon later, but that's good enough for now. All right, so we've got our oil back in, we've got our drain plug in, and now we're gonna put the blade on this baby. I gotta find that long bolt that goes in there. Short one. See, this is the standard right here. This is the difference. That's because this is a multi-mower with a really high deck. Okay, so this is really long. Let me get a blade over here. I'll sharpen the one that was on there later, and I'll just put a nice new one on. Okay, this was pretty good. It's not brand new, but obviously it's very sharp. What I look for is this square. I love to see that right angle on the blade, and that's how you know it's sharp and pretty new. So let me come around. I'm going to actually bring my chair around here so you guys can see better. Okay, and like I was saying earlier, I would love to hear your comments about what I'm doing with these mowers, things you do with mowers, questions you have, and why I do certain things a certain way. You know, let's just have fun. Let's have dialogue. I've got a lot of subscribers, and I know you guys must be thinking, well, why does he do that way? What's the deal with that? So that looks like it's in good shape. The other thing I always look for is to make sure, like, that's clearing about a ½ inch over there, and that's clearing about a ½ inch there. That tells me this blade or this crankshaft is not bent, and it's gonna run smooth and not wobble. Because what'll happen is you'll hit something hard like that. In the previous video, I told you about that snapper down there where the guy was giving it away because he'd hit a small stump. I would not be surprised to see that that has a bent crankshaft, because the blade was definitely, one end was just totally bent. So this looks great, but I'm always looking for that to see if it has a bent shaft. But those can be repaired too, believe it or not. All right, so there, you got that going. Get this going just with your hands. And most mowers require about 35 foot-pounds of torque. And I've learned over the years sort of what that feels like, and so I end up using I've got a torque wrench, but I end up using my breaker bar because it's handy. So there we go. That's stable. Now I'm checking to make sure these two little dimples are lined up with those holes, and so everything's centered up. You don't want this big kind of bow tie washer this way or that way. It needs to be right there, and that helps support this blade on the adapter. All right, got to find that socket. All right, here's your 5/8. Okay, and of course you've got to stabilize this blade, and so I'm going to reuse my little clamp here. And since I'm going to be tightening this way, you want the C-clamp to come in on the bottom, not up here. I don't want this blade to hit metal, I want it to hit the wood. So you got that going. Loosen it a little bit so we get on there. Okay. Of course, you do want to be using gloves when you do this, especially installing sharp blades. Okay, so that's secure. That's about all you need. And now we can tighten this thing up. It's pretty loose. I'm going to put a couple of turns on it just like that. Now we're going to put some torque on this thing. Kind of snug. Kind of snug. Whoa. Let me get my toolbox on the handle. There we go. It's about a 30-pound toolbox on it. Let me make sure this is showing up in the camera. Yeah, it's showing up. Wish it was brighter. so much leverage here. This breaker bar, you can operate with one hand and use this to stabilize the mower. Okay, it's getting awful snug, so I'm gonna go maybe a half or a quarter turn more. There we go. All right, that blade's on there good. So take the block off. About a half, and check it this way. About a half. It's pretty flush in the front, but that's the way they make these things. But I don't see any wobble. What you're looking for with a bent crankshaft is if that screw starts going, hey. If it just stays stable and twists around, then it's fine. So we got all new oil in there. We got a good, strong, sharp blade. So that's it for today. Send me some comments and questions. I'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned.